Hey, how are we doing today? Let me kill that there. It's been a really busy day. My good camera even died today. I had to take it to the shop, and it's just been one thing after another. I had another video I was going to put up this morning to make up for last night's that didn't go up. Things just happened from one end to the spectrum all the way to the other today. Sales-wise, everything was great, so I literally can't complain about that, but I haven't had a chance to breathe today, so hang on just a second here and see if I can fix the tone of the show here. It looks a little dark. That's about the best I can do. Sorry, folks. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I did see that there was some questions in here already. I will get to some questions. Again, I'll try to just do more questions today. There's just a lot been going on this end here, and I do mean a lot. We've got Shopify. I've got employee things. We've been trying to search for a bigger place to do this at, and it's just been a really packed up week here. And today I thought would be a lot better, but I literally didn't have a breath of fresh air. I didn't even eat at all today until like 3:50. We sold, I won't give out a figure, but let's just say it's way over 4 digits in there. And I'll show you in the video tomorrow. You get to kind of see what we did. I tried something different this time, and I'll go into it tomorrow's video. But it floored us with a bunch of stuff, more so than usual. I won't give you any figures, and I'll just let it be, because I literally wanted that video up today before this first thing this morning, just because it happened this morning. We had some monster sales come in with just a couple little tweaks, and I do mean monster sales. You'll see them tomorrow, and I literally haven't had a chance to breathe, but I know I'm rambling now. Let's see. Aaron, how are you doing, Aaron? Is that a yawn? What is that? Kind of reminds me of the Rick and Morty mouth on the little emoji you got there. Cornelius, how are you doing? If you get a chance, can you explain how you use category to list in? Thank you. Category to list in. Now, if you ask just the average person, most people just think there's like one category. If it's pottery, it goes into pottery. If it's clothing, it always goes into clothing. If it's jewelry, it always goes into jewelry. I don't always follow that rules. Only because some things could have 3 or 4 categories they could go into. The best items, I'll give you this, the best items to ever sell are items that would be in like 3 different categories or 4 different categories. You don't want to list them in 4 different categories. I don't list anything in more than 1 category ever, just because you're going to pay twice what you would for the fees. And if it's a free listing, you're going to pay for a listing if it's a second one, if it's like that. So I never do that with the second listings or second categories or anything. So just FYI. Category wise, like if you're selling like a Coke bottle, there's a Coke section, and then there's a bottle section. Where would you list it? I mean, that's the point you're going to have to figure out. Like I'll list something with Civil War tie into it, let's just say. There's postcards that are patriotic Civil War. There's stamps and covers that are postcard or that are Civil War. There's photos that are Civil War. There's a military section that's Civil War. Button-wise, there's button Civil Wars. There might be men's clothing that sometimes people put Civil War items in, or at least reenactment. And there's a reenactment section in that Civil War section. So items could go in like 5 or 6 categories if you get the right item. And in all honesty, those are the categories that I look for the most. Those are the things, when I've looked out like new items or new things, I try to get ones that would be in several different categories. Like, let's pick RA for a second. If you do FBA, something that I would pick and would be something that I could list on multiple sites first off, if it's FBA. Because I might have secondary markets. If I buy a lot, sometimes there'll always be a few that the boxes just aren't right, or something by the time I get home. I know I should probably pay a little more attention when I'm sourcing out RA items, but I think we all miss them occasionally, or you'll look like it's never been opened. You'll get home and you'll realize somebody cut the tape or something. And I never put a new piece of tape over those. I just don't send them in Amazon just because I don't need any issues. I did get dinged on Amazon for Richard Pryor, which I've said before, so And I got 2 dings. I fought it. It's down to 1, and I don't know what they're going to do with the last one, but I was very frustrated over that one. And it took forever to get any response because initially they tried to ding me with 8 for the same exact thing, which was crazy. I got a screenshot of it, but I may show that in Patreon. It's the first real hassle, besides trying to get ungated in collectibles, I've had in Amazon, in all honesty. And I was really going in circles with Amazon over that because, long story short, the items that I sold weren't licensed technically by Richard Pryor's estate, and I couldn't prove it, and it just goes on in a big circle if you're on Amazon. You'll find out if you ever get stuck with that. But if you're RIing, let's pick My Little Pony. I bought a whole bunch of My Little Ponies, nice box sets for RA items, 2 years ago. Now, I didn't sell them the first year I got them. I held on to them, and I sold them the second year. Well, I did sell some, but I sold most of them the second year. They weren't around anymore, and they sold very well. Those could go in several categories. There's movie-related, there's toys, there's action figures, fantasy and stuff like that. Those categories that those items can go into. Mostly they would be toys, but, that's just an example. Like Star Wars. There's a toy section for Star Wars. A lot of people list Star Wars and collectibles under the science fiction Star Wars category. Like comic books. People will list Disney comic books in just the comic book section, but there's a Disney comic section. There's a Disney section for most books and DVDs, and they'll list them in several sections. And in many cases, people will list those in a couple categories even, too. The only time I would list it in a couple categories, if it was a surefire sell, it's hard to say. I don't think I would then, now that I think about it. I just never use 2 categories anymore. I'll list it in one category, and if I don't have any action, I may switch it to another one after 60 or 90 days. Another thing that I do with that is if I have like 20 of the same niche items that are going up, like I've got 70s die-cast Shogun Warrior sitting on there. And if I'm going to list, like there could be 2 or 3 categories I could list those in, science fiction and collectibles, or Shogun Warrior action figures in the toy section. I'll list like half of them in one category and half of them in the other, and then put notes, hey, I got more up, check my other items, blah, blah, blah. In that way, if somebody sees them in one category, they'll automatically check out the other ones if they collect, because most of that kind of stuff is collectibles, and you're going to draw some interest in not just one single item. They're going to want other items in that same niche. That's why it works so well with that. Tomorrow's video, you should really look out for that one, just because you'll get to see something. This is something I just tried, and it worked. So we'll go with that. Let's see here. Hopefully that gives you a little thought on that, Cornelius. It takes time to figure out what's the best category in my book. And I'm cheap, so I don't pay for the second category. I don't pay for any of that stuff at all. Looks like my lens is blurry. Yeah, and that's even worse. Sorry, folks. I'm off the real good camera now, so there we go. So I hate these. I hate the webcam, sorry. Let's see here. Duncan, hi, how are you doing, Duncan? I researched old Japanese stamp postcards this morning. Have found one signed General Kasagi Nakajima. Could be a rare one. Yeah, I've had some of the signed ones before. It just depends on the general himself. And I had like 12 of them at one time. One of my pickers walked up on a set, and it was from a Japanese estate. He got some really nice stuff that, somebody else got before I got to it. But I did get some of the postcards. I want to say I averaged on most of the signed ones like 50 maybe to 125. Now, I don't know on all of them. I only had a group of 12 or so. I think 2 of them were the same one. You probably are talking about the one with like the portrait and then the branches and then maybe a ship or something, or a scene on the bottom. It's probably like a side view of his head or something, I would guess, the ones that I've seen. There's almost always a spot on the bottom to write. And I think all of my signatures but one were in Japanese characters, which was kind of hard to figure out. I had to use a friend, and I think we went to college. I think I asked. I took Japanese history in up to the Meiji period, and I think our professor ID'd those for me, if I'm not mistaken. Colleges are really good if you got stuff that you can't ID online. I've taken stuff there even after we were out of school, and it helps that I know people, but usually if you can find out where their office is at, I've just walked in there on occasion and got some good information. It's a public facility if you're going to a state college or something, so they can't tell you to get out. Let's see here. Good luck with those, Duncan. Hustle and Grind, how are you doing? J&J Flippin' Couple, how are you doing? Amazon Seller 99, how are you doing? Shopify, yes. Yeah, that's added a lot to my stress load. I'm not gonna not have it ready for this Christmas because this past Christmas was a dud on the Shopify aspect of it, just because of all of the issues and or not Shopify specific, but we were trying to get our own going with we were using Sellbrite and Ecom Dash, and they both work about the same. Shopify is probably the easiest, and I don't want to have to spend a ton of time. Somebody else who I was talking to, Amazon Seller 99, in fact, it was on a chat, said it took them a year to get there straight. And they don't have anywhere near the listings that we have. They were more like an RA and stuff like that too, an NOS and wholesale. And I don't want to wait a year. And Benny over at Tenacious Toys, he's been on the channel once before. He's like the only outsider like that. Tenacious Toys, he's got a good site, and it's all Shopify. And if he can run that on Shopify, I know he doesn't have as many items, but you can scale on Shopify. And there's an app store, and the app store has the eBay. Now it costs a lot, and you have to get a quote for stuff like I got. I'm not going to give out the price that I had to pay for it, but let's just say it's hefty when you got a lot of listings. So you want to be sure this is what you want to do on it too, because you're talking an investment either way you go, and to start it up and monthly fees added on for everything you do and stuff. So it's been an adventure, let's just say. If you haven't hit the like button, I know I'm very rare. I hardly ever think about that one, but pop that like button there. I don't know if YouTube's been removing bell notifications and stuff like that, but I've had 3 or 4 people tell me they're not getting notifications at all until the last second they see the show up and they're wondering what's going on. So last week's show was changed to an 8 o'clock show, but notifications and all that stuff should still be going out. So I don't know what they did, but I know there's several people that were even said that they were unsubscribed when they weren't. So just FYI, that stuff kind of happens. Or they changed the option. I don't remember what the end result was, but I think nowadays, or if it's not active yet, they're going to have an option where you can select what the bell does. I did see something about that. I do some survey thing and stuff here on YouTube occasionally, in some program that they have for development or whatever it's called. And I know I saw that in one of the options. Let's see here. My feed's frozen up. Hang on just a second. Let me pop back up again. See where we are at. How are you doing, Mark? How is it going this evening? eBay needs a visit shop icon for sellers as big as the add to cart icon, because visit shop link is too small on devices like the smallest font available. Yeah, I don't do much on my phone, so for me it's not that issue, but I know a lot of people do. I don't really mess with the app very much, other than checking sales and taking offers while I'm out. It's just, I'm not a big phone person. In fact, I've got a video coming out on something really wrong with Instagram. So something that's the video's done. I'll probably hang on. I'm sorry, I got a son texting me. I don't usually do stuff on social media sites or videos on it, but this one really is something that they shouldn't be doing, and I'm going to put that video out probably tomorrow even too. But I'm not a big fan of social media in the first place, so I don't mess much with the phones or anything like that. I like laptops. I got laptops all over the place. That's just my thing. I know somebody else told me, and this is somebody who works at eBay, that they've got like limited use space or something for the eBay app, which is something that I figured would be the case. The apps on the phone don't carry as much girth as the PC versions of anything. Just FYI. I know some people use the website page for eBay on their phone. I don't know if you've tried that or not. My phone, it works fine if I want to use the web page, but again, I don't like doing much on my phone. I never even talk or, text and drive at all. I'm not that type of person. I never have been a big fan of cell phones personally. Nothing wrong with them, not criticizing anybody who is, but just not me. Carolina Picks, how are you doing? For those in Patreon, I'm going to be up tonight. I'm going to be getting off earlier. We're going to hit it like 8:10 at the very latest tonight. I'm going to be on Patreon tonight. I'll be answering every single thing that's left up there and posting a video it's been done a couple days. It's behind the scenes as well as some conversations from the last flea market, and with Jim and Julie are in that one too. And that's going up on Patreon. There's a lot of footage too that we could not use, including the whole last segment where we were just discussing stuff because of the music playing in the background. I must have just zoned out the music playing in the restaurant and didn't even think a thing about it. I knew it was going to be a problem at the flea market because some of my favorite booths, one of them plays the music while I'm there, which I like to hear, and then I kind of get in the music and forget that sound is going to be on the video. And, I'm not one to just redub over something. You're going to hear it the way it is or not. So that goes up tonight. And then the YouTube out of the box video is been done. It's been one thing, as I said, after another. So that one's going to be up probably tomorrow morning. Let me see how much my video upload speeds go tonight, because I've got a couple more I've got to upload for some things as well too. But and for those in Patreon too, I do now have a professional Dropbox, so you're going to be seeing a lot more stuff coming up there, all kinds of other things. So Dropbox is good to go, and that way I can not have to worry about uploading to YouTube and jamming it up and stuff. I've got a secondary way to get up to Dropbox. So just FYI. Let's see here. Summers 422, how are you doing? I think you have a question in there too. I will get to that tonight too. As I said, I will be on Patreon until everything is answered and done tonight. So just FYI. Jason, how are you doing? Chef Kibley, how are you doing as well? Liquidation Pros, good evening. Hey, Disney Family 515. I'm always tempted to call out people's personal names, but I'm not one to do that. Special Disney Family 515, so, stuff like that. Stone Creek Picker, how are you doing? Murray, how are you doing, Mr. Zuckerman? On board as well. Karen, good evening. Welcome back in here. Let me just shout this so I don't forget. March 12th is eBay up front, and I am actually going to that because it's local. So I will be there an hour or two earlier. I'm going to be in Ann Arbor picking up something from a call from last month. I don't rush out to, that type of distance until I've got several things to do at the same time. And most people I deal with don't care if it sets there for a little while. They know they're going to get the money from me if I say I'll take it. So, so I'm going to be out that way in Detroit. eBay Open runs 9:30. It's the Garden... Shoot, I can't remember the name of the hotel, but it's Garden something Hotel. Let me see if I've got that paper here. Garden Theater, that's it. And I've been there once before for a convention for something else. Sometimes they have other things there. There's a chat board for those who are in there. I did talk, and I think there's a few folks in Patreon that were still looking for rides out there who have tickets. I don't know what to expect. They responded to a message I put in the chat for there, and the response was a little screwy, and then I went back in and looked, and, anyway, we'll see what happens with the eBay Open. I know one of the eBay head of seller support, I think is what it is. He's commented on a few of my posts before, and I don't know, we'll see what he has to say in person, as well as a couple other folks that I've talked to in video chat when we go back last year to the promoted listing. So they might not, be very kind. I don't know how they're going to be. I don't know what to expect, I might be a sore spot. Who knows? I never take anything for granted on what their motives are with anything. Not just eBay, but anybody in general. So let's hop on down here. Flippin' Ozarks, how are you doing? Couple of pickers, good evening. Welcome in too. Duncan and the spiders. I'll see big spiders this week. A tree fell on my roof after a cyclone. Yeah, I saw that, and I was thinking about you guys. There's, I think, 2 or 3 people in here right now from Australia. Yeah, I was thinking about that. So, glad to hear you're back and okay. I haven't watched much news. I did see all the highlights, so I did know what was going on. I've been staying away from the news and all that other junk just lately. I've got so much stuff going on. I barely even turn on a TV anymore. Usually by the time it's bedtime, I'm ready to go to bed, and I don't even turn on much. Thomas Francis Lancaster. I do get down to Lancaster. Maybe if I get down there again, I'll call it out ahead of time or something. Maybe set something up. I do get down that way though. I'm sure. I think you may be the one I talked to once before about the little flea market they have there in by Logan. If you know which one I'm talking about. Hockin Hills one out there. It's on. Oh geez, what's that highway out there? We go out there all the time, and I can't think of the highway out there. But it's the main highway into Logan. It goes past Lancaster. In fact, we were at Lancaster the end of last year. They had I think it was an art festival or something, and everything was just jammed up in Lancaster when we were there. Lancaster from me is like 3 hours and 20 minutes one way. So I get down there only a couple times a year, but we do get down there. A couple of pickers we have been experimenting with flat rate for shipping instead of calculated. Helped out immensely. It depends on what you're shipping, I guess, would be the point. I charge for shipping, so for us, I don't worry about, flat rate. If it fits in a flat rate and I can save, I do. But I have to order flat rate boxes, and I don't use enough of them to make it worth the while. I always keep the bags up there, though. And when they have them, I grab them at the post office. But I almost never go to the post office. I've got a post office account, and all that kind of stuff. That's how I set up our box and pickups and all that stuff, too. If you don't have a post office account, I would honestly sign up because there'd be some point where you might actually need it. Just FYI. I did sign up and get a pirate ship, but I haven't used it yet, in all honesty. I used to do... if you're talking about like flat rate priority, that's fine because that's what it is. But the zones are going to be different. And if you're talking about like just putting $5 for an item, that's your flat cost. You can lose on that sometimes depending on how far it's going. So calculated has always been my best recommendation. In all honesty, no criticism towards what you're doing, but calculated has always worked. I have never had an issue with calculated and all these years, and I swear by it because again, I've never had an issue. I ship out calculated every single day, every single item. I do charge for everything, every single piece of item. If I sell a $3 postcard, they're paying the $3.85 to ship it priority or not priority, first class mail for 3-ounce package. So that's just they have to add that into their cost. At the end of the day, it says what the end of the price is going to be, and they go with that. Mr. Mom Vlog, how are you doing? Good evening. Frank Ireland, sold $2,000 in my first month after quitting my job. Very good sales, very good sales. I remember those days. It takes a while. 2,000 is good for anybody on their first year, or first month, I can tell you for sure. Eventually, if you can keep that going, that skyrockets up when you get a certain amount of stuff up. Everybody who's watched the show knows I got a lot of listings up at any given time. I got a lot up right now. I think the store I share with you, the dollar-wise of the inventory is almost 900,000 just in that store. Of course, we're on other platforms everywhere else, and some items we only list on one site, some items we cross-list on 2, some items we cross-list on 3. It just depends on what the items are. So the more items you have up, the better you do, the more you sell. I know people say you got so many items, but I sell so much stuff. Just since I'll give you since last night, I have sold since last night at last afternoon, I say night, since yesterday at 3 p.m., which was my cutoff, everything was mailed at that point. I have 112 items sold on just the store I share with you. And then we've only listed 92 items today. So I'm in the hole from sales actually. So it gets to be, you'll have these days where you want to get ahead, you want to get more listings, but you're constantly selling, and you got to keep moving just to keep those numbers up because we're trying to get to the 100,000 listings on there. I mean, quantity works when you have the right quantity, I should say. And I think at this point we've figured out what sells, length of times that it takes us to sell certain things. Like the flea market video. If you've watched the flea market videos, I got 2 of them up with Jim and Julie. They're subs. It just happens to be that way that I ran into them out there. And I didn't look up a single thing in those flea markets when I was there at all. Not a single thing did I use my phone for. And I made out fine with every single item I bought. That's your goal. That should be your goal. Now, I'm not saying I don't use my phone or I don't look up anything, but that flea market I went to is like a typical. The stuff you see at that flea market's the stuff I've seen at flea markets for 20 years, 25, 30 years. It's the same stuff. The rare items show up here or there and stuff like that. Most of that kind of stuff I got to hunt down. Estate sales, I usually find better, high dollar stuff. But, flea markets are really good sourcing locations for me. And I do make out like a bandit. I mean, we did well over $1,000 at this last flea market. I mean, obviously I haven't sold it yet, but I have no doubt with my numbers on that. This is all I do. You're gonna know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers after doing this as long as I have, you should quit. I shouldn't be in the business if I couldn't quote my numbers. Sometimes I hate having all that in my head because I'm out and I'll quote list costs and stuff like that just because I'm always thinking about that when I'm buying stuff and things like that. Knowing how much, how you're going to list it, what you're going to do to list it and things like that's key before you even buy it. Like knowing what I'm going to send to eBay, what's going to go to Amazon, should I do Discogs with this group I'm going to do or not. So tomorrow's another busy day. Tomorrow, I may film this. I don't know. It's going to be pretty cold in the morning, and I'm going to be in between dropping off a kid and having to deal with a business appointment. So it's going to be iffy if I'll video it or just get it. But I'm going to be looking at a mess of vintage 1950s records that sound like they're really good. I haven't been able to get a picture of them sent to me, but the stack that he said, the first stack he said is about 4 foot tall, and it's all 78. So that's a lot of 78s. They're laying on their side and all. But and then in the evening, I'm going to be looking at a massive golden age comic book collection that I've been trying to get for 3 years. I made an offer on this one for $4,500 3 years ago, and hopefully it works out. Hopefully I can nab it because I've been looking at this one for a long time. It's all 40s. There's some 30 stuff in there, war era covers, Action Comics in the 20s, issues in the 20s and stuff. High dollar Captain Midnight I really want out of that lot and stuff like that. Early Whiz Comics, the first 20 and 30 issues and stuff like that. Some really good stuff. So that's my day tomorrow. I'll be either in a real good mood or bummed out. I don't know. As I said, my good camera's in the shop. I don't know what's going to happen with that. And, it's a camera that a lot of people won't service because it's the way it's built or something. I don't know. It's an Alpha Series 6400. So, anyway. And I haven't had it that long either, which is very frustrating. I've used it a lot, but let's see here. John, how are you doing this evening, John? Smelik, if I hopefully pronounced that right. Looking forward to the Detroit eBay conference. Yes, we will see. It's a 3-hour event. I don't know. Hopefully it's worth my time going out there because I don't know. There's a lot of things I could do with 3 hours plus drive time if I didn't have to. I could have waited to go to Ann Arbor another day because it's not right there. I'll have to drive around. But anyway. Let's see, where are we at? Hey, SG, how are you doing? Frank says, just over broke is not for me anymore. We made good money working for somebody, but at the end of the day, when I wasn't working for them anymore, I didn't have much to show for it. Nowadays, if I want more money, I can work a lot harder and get more money. If I worked for somebody else and I worked harder, my pay never increased a dime. There was no incentive to practically kill yourself for a job and never see your family if you're not going to make anything more if the business does well. And everywhere I worked, and I'm not trying to brag, everywhere I worked, I hammered the numbers. So most places I worked, there was 3 categories your pay is rate on. So you get a base pay, whatever it may be. I'm not going to shoot out what I made, but I did fairly well. With bonuses, it was an easy 6 digits. But so part of it would be your controllables, like cost of bags and shipping supplies and chemicals and electricity. All that's under your controllables. And then we had food cost and labor. So if you made all 3 of those, you got a certain percent, or you got all your bonus. And if you made them by a certain percentage above that number, you could get like a 10% increase over your bonus. If you didn't make one, you lost it wasn't broken down like 33% each. One weighted more, which was usually labor, because labor is most of the time your biggest. It depends on the business you're in, of course. A restaurant has 100 plus employees, sometimes on staff, so that evening labor may have been your biggest investment. So it's all a weighted thing on your bonus and stuff. I don't know. I know there's some people who worked in foods and stuff and know what I'm talking about, or retail. I did retail the same way, but you got to kill yourself, and all you're going to do is get the pay that you should have had anyway, because the pay is the base, as I said, and then you got to earn the rest of it. And if I always earned it and I always increased, I could only get a 10% push for going over that mark, and it didn't make a lot of sense to put in an extra 10 hours a week every week if you're not going to get a single dime extra for it, but your boss and his boss are going to make an extra $10,000-$20,000 a year off of your hard labor, because that's the way the company was set up. Most of them are set up that way. Regional makes a certain boost off of his guys, and then VP, which would be vice president of whichever way the company's broken down, whether it's like split into quarters. Some of them are split in quarters, and some have like 3 parallels for VP regions and stuff like that. I worked in corporate, so for a little while too. Yeah, I hated being broke. Starting off on eBay, it took us 3 years not to be broke. So, just FYI, it's a long haul. I can tell you for sure. I like cool movies. So do I. Do you have multiple stores? Yes, I do. And can you explain multiple store strategies? There isn't much of a strategy. I have multiple stores because if I have a second store, anchor store, it saves $2,500 a year in fees just to have that anchor store. Now, I did all the math, so I know that's what it is for what I save, because you get to 10,000 listings at much less the other way. So that's what I do it for. Now, I do split up certain things and things I don't share with everybody, because I do a lot more than what you guys see. I don't share a lot because obviously I don't want my business to go sour with sharing everything. Antiques are a love and a passion. I've always done antiques, even when I didn't sell them. So I love talking about them. There's certain things I only share in Patreon, and there's the real deep secrets that I don't share with anybody other than maybe a couple of friends in some private online boards and stuff like that. Because, there's obviously things that I've gleaned from doing this for, 20 plus years, 25, almost 30 years selling stuff. I've been swapping stuff since I was like 7. Started off with trading cards from Star Wars and Kiss and all that stuff. I was getting like 3 for 1 and stuff like that, and then turn around and doubling my inventory. But anyway, it's just the way it is, Strategy wise, it's a money saver. One other thing I should say if you're doing multiple stores, don't split your niches up unless you've got a specific reason. You don't want to be seen as competing against yourself, and you also want to have as much of one niche together so that you have a dominant force in that niche that you're going to be drawing people in. There's people that have been buying from me, and not just a couple, not just a handful, but a lot of people that have been buying from me for years, 5, 10 years in some cases, over and over and over and over and over and over again, because they know I keep listing the same types of things in those same niches. And that's the kind of business you want. You want the people who like you. And if you split them up wrong, you've got different stores. It gets confusing to know who's who, because there's a lot of people that have more than one store for many reasons. Just because, for one, a lot of people don't trust eBay. They could shut you down for a stupid Vero that you had no clue on that just happened. There's so much stuff they can do that you never know. People get their accounts locked. I was just talking to somebody in Patreon the other day that his account was locked because of some other scammer. It was good. He was happy about them locking it for safety reasons, but they don't always do it for that type of thing. PayPal's done it before. I got some upset, emails. What can I do? PayPal locked me. Of course, you call PayPal, or if eBay locks you, you call eBay right off the bat and let them see what's going on. That's my take on it. We are going to eBay up front in Tampa. I didn't look where that was at. Where is that in Tampa? Is that off of like alternate 19 or something off that way through the center of Tampa, I wonder? Probably near the old hotel sections. T-Mat Auctions, how are you doing? Kansas. Well, I am not in Kansas anymore. I have been in Kansas before, though. Flippin' Goodies, how are you doing? Guerrero Espinoza. Guaro. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Espinoza. How are you doing? Oh, Anthony. I'm sorry. How are you doing, Anthony? Couple of pickers. Flipping goodness. Let's move down. Mark, smash the like button. Yeah, I do forget to say that. We're always going to get those thumbs down. And why they want to do it, I just don't watch shows if I don't like them. I don't even mess the time with smashing the like button or dislike. On YouTube, they count the same, believe it or not. They don't even look at it. With the new YouTube, what's it called, dashboard or whatever it's called, you don't even see your negatives on the page. All you see is your totals. So, they're not even showing it to you. You've got to, like, click around just to see them. So they're telling you how little it is important, I guess. Obviously, I'd rather have all thumbs up, but... Ms. French Twist, how are you doing? That sounds like everybody's busy. Charles, how are you doing, Mr. Lowe? Let me move on down here. Hey, Carl, how are you doing? Another sunny Florida folk here. Eddie, how are you doing? Verahona. Buffalo. I've been in Buffalo a few times. I had an uncle that lived in Buffalo, downtown. It was a taller building. I remember being a child and just being amazed at the cityscape. And it probably wasn't that big of a section of town back then. Don't call it a death pile. It's backstock, couple of pickers. I never use it as a death pile. Most everything I got that I don't list, I have either nothing into it or I don't, it's not a big ordeal for me. A lot of stuff I got's free even. We'll sell one good item and pay for the entire lot. I don't use a webcam for my videos. I'm using it right now only because my main camera that I use to shoot all the videos is a Sony A6400. That's an Alpha Series mirrorless digital camera. The body of that, just the body without a lens, is about $1,000. But it's the only camera on the market that doesn't have a 30-minute time limit on it. You can only record on not everyone, but 99.9% of all digital cameras have a 30-minute lock time. You cannot record more than 30 minutes in a row. You'll have to keep restarting it. And that has to do with some legality in Europe. So chances are, if you don't hunt that type of thing down, you may not realize that. Get the camera and find out that you can only do 30-minute increments. So, you got to watch out what you have. I right now have a Brio, which I used to use. But the Sony A6400 is the bomb. I honestly was worried about sinking that kind of money into it because the lens was more than the camera. But I love that camera because it's a no-brainer. I just turn it on. I set up everything's saved. I've got special features already ready to go. So if I want to do this or do that, I just hit a button. And I know the camera inside and out because I've used it so much. But I was really upset when that camera wouldn't power up. So hopefully it's just a door issue. I use power blocks that go in there, so it's continuous power, and I've got a block that I can take with me, and I got a gimbal for it, and all that kind of stuff too. But again, it's an A6400. Before that, I have used we've got like 2 or 3 of the Nikon D5300s. It's a more reasonable price one. It's a pain to get the color and all that stuff right when you're doing with that camera. The Sony just is the 6400 is just so much better. It's like night and day. In all honesty, the thing doesn't heat up or nothing. I'm just amazed. People have talked about it's got a weird fold out in the back that people complain about, but I don't mind it at all. It actually works just fine for me. So I hate the flip out side ones because those always seem to go out quicker. This one is well constructed. It's like a accordion fold down back on the camera. Look up an A6400, the Alpha Series. It's a real good camera. It's like a low-end camera too at that price, believe it or not. But we're moving up in it, and that was our next step. So next one after that's going to be something much, much better than that, I hope. Are you a collector? Good evening as well. Hang on, you're talking about... Let me slide down and hope my feed doesn't disappear on me. It's probably going to do it. Yep, hang on. Let me find out where you were at again. My feed comes and goes on here. Hang on, let me get back up here. I know I'm long-winded here. It's going to be a short show, and I hate to do that today, but I do have... Oh, we still got 30 minutes or so, 20, 30 minutes. I heard you mention hand-painted or hand-colored in regards to old maps and postcards. Does it say on them or on the items, or how do you tell? I can tell because I paint stuff and I can instantly tell it. If you watch the flea market videos that we had, I pointed to one for Jim. He was wondering the same question. It's easier to show you in person than it would be to describe it. Some of them will say it. There are some U.S. ones. There are some that say it. But anybody could hand color anything. I could go back and hand color vintage postcards right now. And I even have vintage paint to do that. I'm just not something I would do. But, it's easy to tell, I guess, if you've seen enough of them in person. It's literally paint on the top of the postcard. Now, if it's not like a photo, and yes, there is paint that will go on the photos. I have some, so you can hand touch up and tint real photos and stuff like that, even glossy ones. But when they're tinting postcards that's not a photo, it soaks into the paper, and a lot of people are fooled that it's part of it. A loop is a real good way to tell. If it's got dots, first of all, for the color, it's not hand colored at all. Just anything with dots is not a real photo. It's not hand colored. There'd be dot matrix. It's going to have like a dot screen pattern to it. With the loop, usually what you'll see is the postcard would look fine without the color. It's all shaded. Everything's filled in. But usually people will then color over that, and they won't stay in the lines. Now, there's postcards that are printed to look like that too. So you just got to get the hang of seeing it. You'll see like a stray brush or bristle off of a brush that left a little bit of color in an odd spot sometimes, or there'll be just a touch of it on the back of the postcard where maybe they dribbled on their painting area, or there's a little blotch. That's usually how I tell people to start looking, because you'll see those easily compared to trying to figure out the difference between hand tinting on a card or a map, or printed wise. Like a map, most of the maps that you will see, if you look at them with a loop, you'll be able to see dots or something on the coloring. Almost every one that I run into. Another thing to think about is the age of the item. Like on a map, if the map is so old, they didn't have color printing. So if it's got color on it, its chances are hand colored. Even books. You'll go and go through some early books, and you'll see some color plates or some color sections in the book. They were hand colored. Every single book was done one by one by one, and they'll just sit there and go through a book back in 1780s, 1790s, 1910, 1920s, 30s or so. Color 50s, 60s, in that range started to come out in very limited number, and heavy, expensive process, expensive books. So knowing some of that stuff is a plus. If I see color on something from the 1700s, it's been hand colored. I mean, it's just a given. I love colonial stuff, and before Hurricane Katrina, we were in hog heaven for that kind of stuff, because it showed up all the time down in the coast. I mean, all the time. I could go to New Orleans and we could pick it up almost any day of the week, pretty much. Just like old paper money, Confederate bills. In fact, at the last flea market, they had some forgery bills. Not forgeries, but facsimiles, I guess you would say. There was nothing printed on the back. And some of them were for canal notes from New Orleans. And we used to be able to get sheets of those. I used to be able to get sheets of Confederate bills 15, 20 years ago and stuff like that. Obviously, things are different. But after the hurricane, there's nothing to shop down there. We were there last December, and the coast is gone. The only other place that's good is, from my personal experience, is up in New England. We always did colonial items up in New England as well too, and I was always able to score those. I love early colonial Rev War, and we had season tickets when we lived in Virginia to Mount Vernon, if that gives you an idea. They were doing an archaeological dig there at Washington's. It was really neat. I really enjoyed that. The buildings, his house, seeing his stuff. You'll see more of Washington stuff at Mount Vernon, which is owned by a group of women, not by the government. Washington's body and Martha's body are not owned by the government, believe it or not on government property. But the Smithsonian had far less items of Washington's than Mount Vernon did, which was sad. You'd think that the National Museum would have some say in all that, but it was very nice. It's a real nice estate out there, right up on the Potomac, and it was a pretty view. If you see the postcards, it literally looks just like the postcards, so it's a really nice time there. We went to Fort Ward, and we did all that area up there, and I loved that area for that kind of stuff. I didn't like working there or living there, but it was nice for stores and thrift stores. Community Thrift in Laurel, Maryland was like the best thrift store I think I've ever seen. Community Thrift. I don't know if it's even there anymore, but it was in Laurel. You could see it from the bypass, I think, off the Beltway. Just FYI. Again, that's been 15, 20 years ago, so don't know if it's there. SJ, just curious if any of your pickers also sell. Yeah, they all sell. They sell at flea markets and stuff like that too. Some of them sell to each other, believe it or not. We were talking at the flea market. I don't get tools almost never unless I go source them myself. I can't get tools at all from my pickers. The guys in the tool market have been dealing with my pickers for 15, 20, 30 years. I moved back to Ohio late for that kind of thing, I guess. Most of them already had their hookups and stuff, and they saw the stuff that I buy as junk. So I came in at the right time too with the pickers that I'm doing, because back then they couldn't move this stuff. Maybe nowadays things are a little different for them, but they still always call me first. If they raise their price a little bit and it's still within my purchase time or purchase range, I'm fine. I don't really care. Let them make a little more money, because I make more money these days. So I'm very fair. I don't argue when they tell me this is what I want. Sometimes they'll just say, "Hey, what do you want to pay for it?" That's usually what they'll say on a bunch of stuff, and I'll do $1 or $2, whatever. What we usually charge. So they all sell though. Most of them are flea markets. Some just do like Craigslist ads and Facebook. Not so much anymore, since they had some murders from Craigslist ads in Michigan, and there was, I think, one here in Ohio, and a lot of people freaked out about that. Likely so, of course. I don't meet too much anybody. We haven't done any listings on Craigslist or Facebook anymore at all. I stay away from those. I hate, in all honesty, I'm not a big fan of Facebook at all. They just throw too much out there, and it's just the stealing of data, and all the other junk that they put out there. Not vetting the material and stuff. I'm just not a big fan of it. I'm on Facebook, but I just don't like it, in all honesty. And then I get bombarded with stuff sometimes. I don't have the time to answer it. So, then people get mad because I'm not answering, and I'll get, nasty comments and things like that. But I don't have time. I mean, I got to have a living and take care of it. We've got a son that has some issues that we have to take care of. So I don't have time for answering every question out there. Patreon, as I said, I always do answer and stuff. It even takes me a couple days sometimes to get to the Patreon ones, just because of that. My Patreon's grown, and sometimes I'll get a bunch of emails in the same day. Again, I'm not complaining at all, but those are the ones I take priority. So I'll answer those every time first. And if I don't get to the ones on other channels, I'm sorry, but I can't afford to do it anymore. As the channel grows, so do the questions and the comments and stuff like that. And let me just shoot this out there too, because I got a nasty message. I got a few of them, not super, super nasty, but I've had people ask me, if they could pay me to go out and me show them stuff, and I'm not looking to do that. I don't want to be beholden to somebody in that way. Hopefully, making them do great, because there's no guarantee in life. I did the flea market with Jim and Julie, and I'm not trying to call anybody out, because it was a great experience, truthfully. I did it with them because they didn't ask, and I ran into them many, many times, and we were talking, and they were nice and reached out. They were very polite, and we're at the same place. It just made sense to do it. So it wasn't like something planned. It just something I threw out there, and it worked out very nicely, and had a nice time. So I wasn't trying to do it. Nobody paid me. There wasn't anything to do with it. I'm honestly very grateful that the two of them did it, because, again, that's a first for me, and I was like literally nervous to be out there. I didn't know how it was going to go, but once we started, I just kind of was my own little thing, so it all worked very well for me. So, but I'm not interested in somebody paying me to show them anything like that. I don't have the time. The videos are it, because I can show more people instead of locking it in. I used to charge $45 for, what was it, a half hour, I think, back then when I first started in Patreon. And even for the few that I originally first started, it was a lot of time, and I don't want to... I don't want somebody to feel like they're not getting their money's worth or something. Anyway, I can't afford to do it. I'd have to charge so much to do it that no one would want to do it. And and not to be greedy or anything, but my time is very valuable. That's the one thing that I can't control, is how much time I put into stuff. I mean, that's me. If there was like some way to duplicate myself, and obviously that would be the best bet. But I just can't spread my time out and across the board like that. Looks like, is that Carolina Picks? Well, thank you very much, Carolina Picks. You don't really have to do that. I mean, I don't even remember about the super chats till I get one. Thank you very kindly, though, for the $5. I will be on there tonight. I think you had an email or something in there too, which I'll get to. Again, I'll be up till whenever, until I get it done. So I don't think there's that many. I know there's 3 emails, I think, from this morning that I saw, and a bunch of comments. For the animation cell, I will get to that animation cell for you as well. Not you, but the other folk here too. So just FYI. Let me hang on just a second here. My feed has stopped again. There we go. Let me see here. Let me slide down and hope it doesn't get lost. Where are we going? I'm sorry, my feed's just disappeared again. Waiting for it to show. There we go. Hang on just a second. Let me pop up to where we are. I don't use reserves at all, Kilroy. Hey, Penny, how are you doing? Penny Day in the house, too, I see. Reserves used to be good when you did auctions and you wanted to get a less or wanted to get a set amount for it. I don't do them. I don't pay the extra money or anything like that. I just put a high bin on it and go from there. And I almost never do auctions either. Bins are the way to go because everybody expects it to be able to buy it right now and be done and have it in a couple days these days. And I can blame that on Amazon because Amazon's changed everything to the 1 day and all that stuff these days. And now everybody's trying to compete. Everybody expects it because Amazon's got such a draw and so many people come to Amazon. They're used to that. That's the problem. It used to be in collectibles you could wait a week to ship something and no one cared because there wasn't anything to compare it to. That was typical. Anyway. Ms. French Twist, yes, clay pool balls can sell, and I actually have a video on those. I don't remember the title of it, but it's from maybe 3 or 4 months ago. But I have a video on pool balls. There's different types with the striping. That's what I always look at is the pattern on the ball. And some of them aren't necessarily pool itself, like a traditional pool, but there are other games of pool. Some of those clay pool balls go back to like the 1890s and stuff. I get trade cards all the time for pool hall stuff. I do source outside the box and stuff like that, so you got to know what type of collectors have what and where you're going to find a collector that would sell that kind of stuff. But do you try finding keywords for the heading subject? Wally Stewart. For what I sell, I already know what the keyword is, and I'll give you a real good one. Whatever item you got in collectibles, if there's a pug dog on it, pug is an excellent primo keyword for something with a pug dog on it. If you're selling it, I've probably half the people who I've done like store reviews on and stuff like that on Patreon, and in the past I've done them here on YouTube, they've missed that one, and a lot of people don't get it. If they're into vintage and postcards and things like that, trade cards, pugs are just extremely hot. Everything with pug sells. Everything with frog sells. And stuff like that you can list obviously in collectibles, the animal section, and then narrow it down to dogs and then pugs. Or trade cards, Victorian trade cards, other would be the other category that I would list something like that in. But I sell stuff because there's a pug on it all the time. Frogs always sell. Some guy bought a ton, and I mean like more than 50 trade cards that were just sports related. So, all at the same time, it was a big sale. $687, I think, is what the bottom line was on that one. Those are keywords that I always think about. When I see something, I'm not always even worrying about the age or anything else. If I see like a postcard with frogs dancing on it, I already know it's going to be anthropomorphic frogs dancing, fantasy, fab, something along that line is automatically going to go in there. Now, fab isn't necessarily a keyword. It's a filler word. I break it down to needed words, needed keywords, then needed words, and then like just filler words. I fill up some items. I fill up the entire title. And again, I do that sometimes because it stands out. A lot of people don't do that in some categories. If you do it, yours is always going to be longer and more prone to be seen in those categories when people put the real quick abbreviated titles when they're just typing quick. When you've done this a long time, and again, this isn't a brag, it's just because I've done it for 20, 30 years, you'll get to know what keywords sell what. It may be something that you haven't a clue on why that would sell it. Oysters. Brunswick tables. There's just so many things. Tin can. There's just so many in my area, so many keywords and search criteria that I use. It does help that you spend a lot of time researching the items to see what's always at the top of the category you look for. These days, since if I'm looking on Terapeak, it's a year's worth of stuff. my items show up at the top for everything I'm looking at pretty much in certain categories like trade cards or postcards. So I've gotten to memorize enough of my own prices because I keep selling the same types of things over and over again. I don't have to look at Terapeak anymore just to see my own sales results. And if you're looking in trade cards, you'll see my number system, so you'll know they're mine. And most of the time, I'm in the top 2, 3 of whatever the price is in those categories, just because I've sold a lot. Marks, sometimes I'm in the top, and records, I'm almost always in a certain section of them and stuff. So you memorize the numbers, you memorize the keywords just as much as that. Like knowing that a specific 45 always sells. Even if it only sells for $10, you have a Nate Stuckey was one of the ones I had in that video. You get Nate Stuckey, that same one, over and over again, Sweet Thing, you're going to know that record over and over again. You're going to know that, this Beatles 45 doesn't sell. This White Album isn't a numbered edition, so I'm not going to mess with it. This one's missing an inner liner. And all that stuff plays in the keywords you use with it. Like if you got a 45, the keyword is PS. If you've got the picture sleeve, that is a key term people look for. So if you're selling a 45 and you're not putting PS in there, you're missing a killer search term. I will look for that. If you're selling books and you're not putting DJ in your title for a search term, you're missing out because that's Dust Jacket. Even if they're not using it for necessarily searching, which most people probably would, they're going to see DJ in there right off the bat and know what that means. HB, hardbound. You gotta, if you're selling in a niche, you got to know what the terminology is for that niche. And I brought up, we were talking about, because Julie she looked at every single kids book that was there, and I do that sometimes too. So, but I kind of was watching and trying to see where they were spending their time, just to see if what things they look for. But stated first edition on those kids books. If you see the word stated and first, whether it be the word first or 1ST, that's a search term. Just if you put in a HB and stated, that's what people will look for. Let's like Stephen King HB stated. That's going to mean it's a Stephen King first edition without even having to put the word first in there. It's a stated first edition is what that word stated means. And when you see that in the title, it means if you go to the book, it's going to have the words first edition typed out on the copyright page. And then if it's like first printing, the numbers will be sequential on there. If they're not, it's a second, third, fourth, fifth printing. And that goes for any book almost. Now, Penguin and some of the other ones have, like, they'll say first published in 1969, and then they'll have a copyright up at the top that says 1969. Generally, those are first editions with some. And there's other books that do the exact same thing, that it might not say the word stated first edition, and you won't see that in the title, at least for the knowledgeable ones you won't. So, I mean, there's search terms, keywords that a lot of people miss just because they haven't done it for 20 years. I mean, it's not a fault that, I didn't have. I mean, I had the same fault. I didn't know things when we first started, but your goal is to know what you're selling enough. If you're going to sell the same things over and over again, you better know the terms. You better know, if you're selling clothing, you got to know what to measure. How do you measure a shirt properly? How do you measure the pants properly? All that kind of stuff means something. And if you don't get good at it in a year, or even less, I would honestly say, in just a few months, that's going to be detrimental to your business. Not understanding platforms and all that stuff too. But keywords are so important. I've pointed out keywords to people, and they've put that keyword in there and sold the item pretty quickly. Again, because not every item has a good keyword to it. You got to really hunt and peck. I get people asking on what's my search criteria? What's the best way to search for anything? Using the least amount of words to find what you're looking for is always the best. If you can find your item in just a couple keywords, those keywords should be in your title for sure. That's a surefire way. So like if I'm looking for something on Terapeak or something, I'm going to use like 2 words and then narrow it down to a category and see if just those 2 words are essential. And then I'm going to sort those by, highest to lowest. What sold for the highest amount? And then I'm going to add a word and keep it at highest to lowest. And then I'm going to compare. And then if that category isn't good, I'll back out of that category and I'll use those same search words and see if they show up for another category. That's how I do it. You got to narrow it down. But again, you should do that and then move past that where you know that in your head and you know what's going to go. That's why I said when I'm out buying, I already know what I'm going to put in the, this is going to go up for this much. He'll list it. He'll list it. He's going to take the picture this day. I'm already thinking about that stuff. You know, I don't have time to stop. I don't want to have time to stop, I should say. You know, we did some monster sales that would, somebody quoted a sales figure in here just a little while ago, what they did in the first month. I did that last night from 3 o'clock till 7:30 this morning. So, and I'm not bragging, but you're going to, keywords, pricing, doing the ups and downs with prices and fluctuations, all that stuff works. You got to work it though. It's not like in the olden days where you could, you know, promoted listings kind of worked when we first started them. But these days you got to work your store. You got to market it. A grocery store or any store, they market it all day long. They front and face shelves. They make sure there's no outdated items. They pull out bad fruits. You got to do that to your store constantly. I mean, it's not like Poshmark where you got to share and all this stuff, but you got to take, it's maintenance. Prices change on items, even over 6-month time frame. So, you know, you got to take that in consideration. You got to also, in some categories, I won't lower prices even if other people are selling it lower. They're going to run out of their items, and I'm still going to have mine. I'm still going to get them, and I got other items to float it. So it's a, I want to say it's a game, but it's not a game. You got to play it like a game, I should say. It's beyond a business in my book because for most people, it's beyond business because you got to know a lot to play with that kind of stuff. You know, and I'm not the best in everything. I don't know anything about the sports markets or anything like that. I'm terrible on clothing because it's been 3 years since we really messed with clothing. You know, but my areas, I buy the same things over and over and over again. You're going to get good at it. It's just the way it is. You spend 20 years doing the same thing, you're going to know it. And that should be your goal, to know it as soon as possible. You're going to make more money. There's just no other way around it. The more you know about what you're selling, the better you're going to be at it. Keywords are really good. I can increase sales just by doing that. It's a no-brainer. Like, well, I've got several videos coming out. I don't want to just blow out everything and tonight, but there's things that there's some items that I get that I can increase the return on my investment 10 or 20% almost every time by doing certain things with it. I mean, it's things like that. Keywords, though, keywords are so important. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Your title, your price, and your photo. That's the pyramid or whatever you want to call it. That's the foundation of every listing. And if those are off, your listing's going to be bad. If your photo's bad, your title's bad, you don't have the right keywords, you don't have them, even the right order is important. If you're searching from a phone or, you know, minimized or, you know, in a pad or something like that, they're shortened titles. So you have to have the most important word all the way to the left of the title. The first words have to be the most important. Don't make sentences for your titles. I see people doing that still all this time. Who cares if it's a sentence? All I want is words in there. And words, the most important words. It's not supposed to make sense in my book. Because somebody's searching, there's a lot of items out there. Don't worry about the words. Just fill them with keywords, the most important keywords you can find. It's going to take you time to learn those, though. Let me get to a couple more questions, because I'm going to have to end it in just a few more minutes here. Let's see here. Anita Finita, how are you doing? Black Crystal Dice, good evening to you as well. Hey, Mark, how are you doing? I think I got you up there a little farther. Michelle, how are you doing as well? Or my feed disappeared again? Yeah, my feed's all over the place. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get to another question. The music thing, I don't have any problems with YouTube Music because I only use nowadays strictly everything off of YouTube's YouTube's freebies. I do have a program that came with like a couple hundred that I do use as well that are guaranteed public domain as well. I have license copies and all that, and I was on a membership on another site before and do have some that I've gotten from there, but I don't have a problem. I was shocked with the stuff that goes on Instagram with that, though. Hey, Midwest Picker, how are you doing this evening? Naked and Laughing. eBay Addicts, how are you doing? I'm going to try and get to a question here. Sean Pearson, how are you doing? Sandhill Treasures. Judy Watson, I'm new to your YouTube, been following for a month. What is the Patreon you speak of? It's a paid page. Again, it's basically the same type of things you see in here, but I talk about more in depth, and it's just that kind of stuff mostly. I do some reviews, things like that. It's a lot of videos. I think there's 100 and I think today will be either 136th or 137th video up there. They're longer videos. They're detailed. I show repairs. I show like insider stuff. I call out stuff that I don't share at all on here. And I answer questions. People post photos of things, and I'll help you price them, or I'll throw those items into a video and show you how to price them. Things like that. I do emails a lot, and I do a ton of emails. In fact, a lot of people, most of the contact I get with folks in Patreon these days has been emails, private emails and stuff like that. Again, as I always answer those on there. It's unfortunately, as I said, time. If you saw my typical day, you'd completely understand. Again, this is by choice. My business is growing and growing because I'm not letting my foot off the pedal at this point. We finally hit a point where, like, a gate opened up. I don't know how else to explain it. It opened up and things just like everything made sense now. So, and it's all going in the same direction, and we've steered it this way and I've steered it that way, and it keeps increasing in a phenomenal way. And again, everybody's going to say I'm bragging, and I get those nasty comments about that, but I don't know what else to say. That's what's happened. It wasn't expected. My kids will even tell you that. In fact, my youngest you'll see in the Patreon video that goes up tonight. Again, it's already done. I let Jim and Julie check it out first to make sure that they were okay with it. If I ever post a video with anybody in it, I am always perfectly fine and happy to remove it from a site if somebody changes their mind later on. I'm just shooting that out there because just so everybody knows, I'm openly saying that. So if anybody ever had a problem, I'm going to be having other videos with other people in them occasionally. I am taking a camera to eBay up front. If they allow me to record inside, I'm going to record inside. I kind of think they'll say I can't do that, but we'll see. I'm not going to sneak one in there and try and do it. I wouldn't violate that thing. I don't try and do that, in all honesty, and I don't want to have any bad blood because they weren't happy with me over the ad blocker at all. They reached out to me, phones, emails, any way they could. So let's just say, they got my attention. I didn't back down, though. I said my mind to them. Where are we at? Hopefully that answers it for you, Judy. It is a paid. To get the videos, it's $9.99. Let's see here. Ireland. We had somebody from Ireland we knew very well. John Hint, Irish Scene postcard today. Irish postcards don't sell very well, unfortunately. I'll have to tell you. There's a very, very few of those that I sell. St. Patty's Day cards, if they're maybe like a clap saddle or something, or Brundage or something, maybe. But most of those just don't sell very well. Hey, Bill, how are you doing? Orbital Search Group. Well, I try to make it useful. Some people don't think so, but, they don't have to watch. Jeff Booker, how are you doing? We've got good friends in Kentucky. Bowling Green, Kentucky, actually. Been through there many, many, many times. Barbara Dearborn, how are you doing? Thank you very kindly. Yeah, I know. I'm way behind, as I always am. The video going up tonight on Patreon, too, is not one that's posted on YouTube. It has music and all kinds of other things in it that cannot be posted on there. So just FYI, it's something you cannot at all see on YouTube. And I've got a couple of those. I'm going to be doing a lot more because I'm paying for a full-fledged business Dropbox right now. I'll be able to share things and other contact. And I may even have an option where people can put stuff up on the drive, too. I don't know how that works yet, so I'll have to get into that a little bit. Let's see here. Summers 422. Somebody else asked me that same thing. No, there's 3 or 4 flea markets that I go to. There's 6 within a reasonable driving distance and about 12 within an hour or two of my house. And I've been to all of them. The best ones are the biggest ones, and the best ones are also the farthest from me. I go to these smaller ones just, I don't even need to source, in all honesty. I love looking. I love the haul. I love finding something unique. So it was fun. I blocked off the day when we went to the last one. I didn't, it was like a father-son thing too. Me and my son were there the whole day. We were there. We were gone 7 hours that day just for that one flea market. So, of course, we talked and I spent, took my time. Usually if I go to a flea market like that, I'm in and out in an hour usually if I walk it twice. It's a small flea market in my mind. Nothing wrong with it. It's good. I always find stuff there, though. Let's see here. Fan Cody, Stream Cody. I'm not sure if you're talking about watermarked brand new stock paper. Um, it depends on what kind of watermark you're talking about. I know some government watermarks on paper you can't sell, just like note paper, like for making banknotes. You can't sell that. It's illegal to even possess, if I'm not mistaken. It has little fibers in it and all. There are some that you can't do because of that watermark. You can't sell them. There could even be a Vero on it. I couldn't tell you. I'd have to see it to know exactly. You don't know what a watermark is. It's a big thing used in stamps. A watermark is something that if you hold it up to the light, sometimes you can see like a white sheet of paper. There'll be a secondary tone. It'll have a name or a logo in it. In stamps, it has all kinds of hidden things. You can always find and read what the watermark is with a chemical called hydrotetrachloride. And I have a can of it here, and we'll soak stamps, and it does not ruin the gum on the stamps, but it makes it so you can see the watermark. And a stamp, a watermark's much harder to tell. It's supposed to be a hidden thing for like authenticity and things like that too. So I'm gonna have to let it go here at this point. Hate to cut you short, but it's been a real long day. I've got a lot of stuff still to do. I'm gonna be up till midnight tonight. I got to get up at 5, so it's gonna be another long day. I didn't get to bed till real late last night, and I had to get up again at 5:30 this morning. So I do appreciate everybody coming on. Thank you, Caroline Picks, as well, for the super chat. I'm sorry I didn't get to your question. I do try. I usually stand much longer than this, but again, this has been a really, really, really busy day. I didn't even have any employees in because of all the running and all the other stuff going on, the camera and everything else, and so I had to disappoint a couple employees today. I just needed to get some stuff done. So anyway, I do appreciate everybody coming on. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation for tonight. If you didn't hit the like button before, please hit the like button before you sign off today. It does help the channel out somewhat to at least have some action on it. I do try extremely hard. This is a lot of time I put into this, and I'd like to at least give you the good information, and hopefully you can just give me a like button if you enjoyed it. So thank you very kindly. I will sign off. I've got a video ready for tomorrow, and as I said, the video is already literally uploaded to Dropbox for you guys to see for Patreon, and as soon as I get off here, I'm going to drop that link for you. But have a good evening, everybody.